Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tastemakers. Now, in the year of 2026, I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me, as always, is Grace. How you doing, Grace?
I'm good. We're back. We took some time off for the holidays, but we're back. We're
We are
back.
back. It's a new year, and we've got a packed episode for you because we are going to be talking about our favorite things from 2025. We've compiled three lists: one from me, one from Grace, and one from you, the audience. We are going to combine those lists and give you a best of. Um, and this is again, I'm looking at this list like, I haven't finished watching all of the things from 2025 yet. I'm sure most of the audience hasn't. I'm sure Grace hasn't. And so this to me is more like here's a compilation of all of the best things that these three disparate sources have combined together. So take the time in the next coming months to watch these things, finish off the year, and then you can really solidify a curated list at around the time that award season comes around. So we are doing that today. Of course, there's also plenty of other stuff to talk about. We've got upcoming shows like The Pitt is coming back, season 2 this week.
Yeah.
We've got some things to talk about, like Stranger Things just finished its near decade long run. There's plenty of thoughts there. And Plurabus has also finished recently. So we're thinking we'll probably do a Stranger Things and a Plurabus spoiler section at the end to talk about the ending of those two shows. So, as I said, big episode. This is what we're doing here. We're doing quality stuff
It's
here
the
on the
best of.
Tastemakers.
I do feel like I did all the data collection for these lists, and I do feel like it is fun to look at the list as like, okay, what does the list tell us about the year? And I feel very strongly that what both the TV list and the movie list says is that it was a very strong year for television. I will like and movies, but I will look at specifically on the TV side of things. I will look at like a thing that like from the audience votes ends up being like 35th and be like, oh man, that was really good. That was really good. That was a really good television show. And yet it's like 35 on the list or whatever. Like very good year for TV and movies. And yet I feel like there are some things that like stand above the rest. It's sort of no spoilers years yet, but there are some like standout specific on the TV side. There are some like cream of the crop, and then there's some like very good things. So very fun to unveil the list as we go along today, and it's been very fun. I loved having a nice long holiday season to catch up on many of the things that either I had missed throughout the year or were wrapping up in the form of not only Stranger Things and Pluribus, but also Heated Rivalry ended and got renewed, a little breakout show of 2025. So yeah, good TV year.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I put together it was a top 10 list, and for the TV one, I there were plenty of shows I didn't manage to fit on my top 10, and 10
Yeah.
is a lot of things to be favorite things. So we're gonna go through the list. We talked about this before. I feel like having one definitive list is the best method because it helps really solidify and structure what we're doing. So we're gonna have one combined list. How we calculated this is that myself, Grace, and the audience as three separate entities combined to each have 1/3 of the input into the list. And then, so we'll have that one definitive list, and then we'll talk about some, honorable mentions and stuff afterward. But just to help you sort of like get a sense of what the list is, so that it's not too confusing, especially if you're listening in audio, will be hopefully a bit more straightforward. And we'll also put the list down in the description, and all of that probably is the thing that we will do.
Yeah.
Grace, anything we should hit before we just get started?
No, I think we can unveil I think we will do our best to make this simplified, and basically your vote counts for a third, mine is a third, the audience as a collective is a third. It does mean with like kind of what ends up being a pretty small sample size in terms of like points, there are some ties that we're going to have to break today, Taran, that we will figure out how to do that, because that already means that our top 10 is actually a top 12, because there are some spillover in the at the back end, the bottom end of the list that we'll have to break up. So I think you and I can figure out how to do that. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So Grace has compiled the list. I have intentionally kept myself in the dark So I will be reacting to the list. Grace will be really revealing the list. Obviously, I know my input, but I don't know what the list ultimately is. So Grace, you said there's a tie.
For television, yeah.
The
So,
end?
at the end, yeah. And there's actually 4 shows that basically take up the 9, 10, 11, 12 spot. So we're gonna have to break this immediately. Which I think basically means like kind of in our top 10, like 2 of these things are gonna like be bumped off the list. So
We have to cut some things.
and I think that this tells you the quality of television this year, which is the things we have
Mhm.
to figure out how to bump are Plurabus, which we're gonna talk about later today, Squid Game, The Lowdown, and Wheel of Time, which are actually, I think, 4 shows that had incredible, stuff. And basically, what ends up happening is that like the only one that ended up on 2 different lists here is Wheel of Time, which you placed on the list and the audience placed on the list. Everything else is some combo of like only one of us put it on the list.
Okay, that's very interesting. Okay. Well, let's look at this then, because I feel like we don't know exactly how we're gonna do tiebreaker. Obviously, we're here and the audience isn't. So
Yeah, sorry, audience.
sorry,
But
audience.
I think, yeah.
But I do think Wheel of Time placing on 2 different lists probably should make it a shoe-in, right?
Well, what's funny is that like it does place on our list, but it then places lower on any individual list because
Mm.
it basically got a 9th place vote from you and an 8th place
Mhm.
vote from the audience. Whereas all those 3 other shows, it's basically how you, myself, and the audience all placed something at 6th place. I will feel like me not having Pluribus on my list is like maybe a little bit of a miss. I think it like I did I think I did finish it after I had submitted my official list. I don't know that I would bump it up. I think it's very good and also like definitely had some first season growing pains, as I think many Vince Gilligan shows do. Um I think we'll talk about that later. Squid Game is a show that I was surprised like didn't make it on the audience. Like I thought the audience would have. I mean, the other thing I've done is I only put the audience top 10. So there is ways to break these ties via the audience score,
Ooh, okay.
except for the Wheel of Time, which like basically it's already the audience has already given their
Mhm.
opinion, if that makes sense. Um, can see if I can do that very, very quickly. I mean, Pluribus would rank the highest because it's only on because the audience ranked it on the list. So then between The Lowdown and Squid Game, which I think Squid Game didn't get any votes. I think it didn't get a single vote. And The
From
Lowdown
the
got
audience?
from the audience. Yeah, I don't think anybody voted for.
So is it there purely on the strength of my
Yes.
ranking here?
Yes.
I see.
Squid Game the challenge was voted for.
That was honestly pretty good.
I agree. And then I think there was some confusion. I know on some of the, is that like whether or not people could vote for unscripted things. I said yes. I'm not sure that everybody would have known that. And then The Lowdown ends up being like 14th on the list. It gets a first place vote. It gets a second place vote. So yeah, that's how the audience divvied up
Well,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
I will tell you, because I've seen 3 of these 4. I've not seen The Lowdown, so I can't judge it.
I think it's fair. We can bump The Lowdown off. I think it's very good, but I think it's I think it's more niche than any of the other things. I mean, maybe Wheel of Time is more niche, but I'm fine to put Lowdown at 12th. It's fine
Okay.
by me. Yeah.
I will trust your judgment in that. So then, obviously, having seen the other 3, I did in fact rank Pluribus last of those 3, because I did not have it in my top 10, whereas I did Squid Game and the Wheel of Time. It's not because I didn't like Pluribus, but it I did like it. It just wasn't as fun as Wheel of Time or Squid Game for me. It sounds like you also didn't put Pluribus on your list.
I didn't. Here's what I would say. Here's how I think that in sort of like just judging what I think is fair here is that we put Pluribus at number 11. So we have Lowdown at 12. Pluribus is at that leaves Wheel of Time and Squid Game. I think Wheel of Time was more fun than, even though that Squid Game was very good. I think Wheel of Time was more fun than Squid Game. So I would put Squid Game at 10 and the Wheel of Time would be at number 9.
I think this feels probably the most democratic way to do this. Wheel of Time being on 2 lists, Squid Game not being on 2 lists, Plurabus not being on 2 lists. I think we're pretty close. All right, so
Pluribus ends
number
up being
10.
Pluribus is on a list, but it's the audience list. So in fact,
Right.
you know, and then between you and I, we're then kind of I'm willing to punt on the lowdown, and so we go Squid Game, we go Wheel of Time, Squid Game, Pluribus, the lowdown. That is our order so far. I'm sure this is like not confusing for people listening at all, which we'll run it down later at the end. But
So Wheel of Time was 10th or 9th?
Wheel of Time is, I think we're putting it a 9.
Okay,
Squid Game
so
at 10.
Squid Game is number 10. We will talk more in depth about Pluribus at the end of this podcast if you want to hear more about that. Maybe why it's not on our list, maybe why it almost was. And so I guess I'll talk about Squid Game because I'm the reason it's here. I've already talked about it a bit, but I really did enjoy the conclusion of Squid Game. I think that it became a cultural phenomenon for a reason. And I think especially when I compare it to a show like Stranger Things, which we will be talking about at the end of this podcast as well. Squid Game, I think, did the better thing, which is that it kind of ended before it could get too bad, right? Like it got out of its own way and had what I thought was a very strong ending. Not everyone agrees with this, of course, but I thought this was very good. It was a very good season. It had a lot of compelling components to it. I think that a show like Squid Game is very difficult to come up with like sequel concepts because it's a death game and you either do the death game again or you do some kind of like revolution storyline, and the revolution storyline is always lame. And so they went with a death game again with a little bit of revolution. But I think it spoke to its themes. It stayed true to itself. And even though it certainly came with some controversy, I think that as a whole, it made Squid Game, I think, a show that can like stand the test of time. I think that like, years from now, we will look back at Squid Game even more fondly than we do right now, is my opinion, because of season 3, like
I think
sticking the landing well enough.
I think that's true. I actually think that Squid Game is a show that, like, I feel like my sort of like where I knock it points are things that it actually has nothing to do with the actual content of the show that I saw. It's actually like the way they split up the,
Yeah.
the ending of it in a way that like felt kind of like like it basically was 2 seasons, but they like, and so in some ways I feel like then
It's basically one season that they split into.
yes,
Is what I mean,
yes.
yeah.
And so then, like season 3, which is the only one you can vote for on this list, is essentially like half a season. I do really
Sure.
like everything I saw in season 3. I actually think that it's a show that, because it had there's a risk when a show is made before it broke out. So like this was a thing that happened with like Severance, where I remember hearing people in that show talk about like when that show was season 1 was airing, like, and when they were making it, they had no idea it was going to be huge. And so then when you make another season of a show and you now know that the thing is going to be gigantic and huge, I think that like that's a worry for me. And I think Squid Game actually like did really well considering this was a show that broke out. I think for the most part they like figured out where to cut out some of the stuff that wasn't working. Is season 1 or 2, there's all the boat stuff. Is that season 2? Yeah, the boat stuff was all season 2, right? Of like looking.
Yes.
Yeah, that stuff didn't work. That stuff didn't really work for me. But it's basically non-existent in season 3. So anyway, all that to say, I actually really like it. I think my initial point that it's like it's kind of half a season is a little bit of why I don't think it's quite up there with other stuff. But happy for
I
it to
think
be at
that's
number
fair.
10. Yeah.
All right. And then The Wheel of Time is officially our number 9. The Wheel of Time season 3. Another very controversial show in terms of audience response, fan response. But I think most people agree that by the time we got to season 3, the show really started firing on all cylinders. It had a phenomenal couple of episodes, one in particular that was really beloved, and was really starting to find its footing even amongst the critics, even amongst the most skeptical fans. And so it was especially a shame, of course, that it is going to be the final season of The Wheel of Time. But I think that trying to adapt this series, especially in the time constraints that this show had, is an incredibly impossible task.
Yeah.
And I do think that Rafe Judkins and the team working on The Wheel of Time did a very admirable job of attempting it. And again, I think by season 3, they had found the right balance of staying true to the source material while also just really cutting down on so much. And you could see the plan, you could see the vision of how this show actually could manage to capture the rest of the story. And so, again, just a shame that it's the end, but I think a very impressive feat of television creation for season 3.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think when I think about the Wheel of Time and the season 3 in particular, is that it had, for my money, like one of the best episodes of television of the year, which is the Rudian episode. I think episode 3 or 4. I
Episode
can't remember.
4, The Road to the Spear.
Yeah, so good. It's so good. I think we chatted about it, did a spoiler recap on it, and DM Philly, who has watched a ton of fantasy and plays a lot of D&D, talked about it being the best fantasy episode of television of all time. And I have a hard time feeling like that's not the case. I think, like, especially TV, I don't even know what would come close. And so, yeah, I thought this was like really good. And I feel like, people had feelings about the way it was being adapted. And I think, yeah, the thing you said, that about time, it's not just that they would turn these seasons around, not that it was like super, in quick succession, but also that they were limited to 8 episodes per season. When you look at the size of these books, there's so much in there. And so people were inevitably, I was upset. There's things that I'm like, oh, I wish that was in the book, or I wish that was in the show like it is in the book, and I wish it was done differently. But I really do think it was like kind of exceptional television that I'm actually, like, part of me wanting to put it the highest out of these things on the list is mostly like, I feel like this is our list and represents what we thought was really good television. And so I like it being number 9 on the list.
Yeah. All right. Well, Grace, that brings us to number 8.
Okay, interesting. This is a thing that you and I both have on our list, and the audience does not have on the list.
Mm.
And actually, a thing that when you ask people about like disappointments of the year or things that didn't work, this is often named as the thing. And I think you and I both disagree. It's not that we have it super high on the list, but together, you and I both putting it at the same spot on the list means it got on here, which is The Last of Us. So a show that came back for its second season, did half of the second video game. People had a lot of issues with it, which we have talked endlessly about why I think that those are actually quite unfair. I do think that people are sort of like, this left a bad taste in their mouth. This is not how I felt. I felt like this is a pretty good adaptation of a show, a continuation. It had, again, I think about like, this had a moment that was maybe the most talked about moment in TV in some number of years, and I thought was really good. And in some ways, I actually, the thing I feel like I appreciate the most about the show was getting to talk to you about it, and the way in which you would point out the ways in which, like, this show, the way it was working and the way it was like talking about these themes and what it was doing, while I feel like the internet was like yelling about it, and you're like, actually, if you look in there, it's actually quite good. And I feel like representing our tastes on this list, I'm happy that The Last of Us is on there.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like it is, the showrunners are people who care deeply about the show that they're making, and they very clearly are putting a lot of work into the detailing of the themes and the choices that they're making. And so it's a show that allows me to really like dig in and take big bites and chew it over. And And I appreciate that about this show, because that's not often the case with shows like this. And so if you are a person who cares about like the accuracy of the adaptation, or if you are a person that cares about not seeing woke stuff, then yeah, you're probably not going to like this show very much, as much as maybe you would like. But quite honestly, too, it's like when it comes to accuracy of adaptation, it's really just like it feels very difficult to win. And I understand that people are upset about different choices that were made. But at the end of the day, if I'm just looking at this as a television show, it was really, really dense and interesting and entertaining all at once. It did a lot of really cool things. I think it also had a very difficult task of trying to adapt the second game, which was already such a massive and like ambitious swing in and of itself. And I thought it did a really phenomenal job. I think the acting was really, really strong. The writing was really strong. It had a couple of really, really good episodes. Um, One of them early on, of course, was a phenomenal adaptation, and I think everyone agrees. And then I think that there was another very, very strong episode toward the end of the season that really, really hit. And so it would be, yeah, incredibly difficult for me to not have this on my list, considering the fact that it gave me two of the best episodes of the entire year for my own, judgment. So yeah, Last of
Yeah.
Us.
And
I
again,
had it
like
at number 8.
that's where I had it too. So then it ends up like sort of sneaking onto the board here. So
At
yeah,
number 8, we
at
nailed
number
it.
8. Yeah. Um, okay, interestingly, number 7 is a show that not you and I did not have on our list, and it is only here because the audience put it so
Mm,
high on their list. They put it at number 4, if I'm doing my math correctly. Um, I I this is the thing about this TV year. I like look at my list and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I didn't have this on my list. And then I look at my list and I'm like, I wouldn't really bump anything, I don't think.
mhm,
It is one of the most talked about shows. I think it makes sense that sort of in the collective space of sort of like RHAP, we know scripted TV, the former post-show recaps world, this show would get a lot of love from the audience, which is Severance. Ends up Severance
mm.
season 2, which again, I'm like looking at my list, and I'm like, I like I don't really know what I bump for Severance. I thought that this is probably not as good as season 1. And yet I think, I'm kind of like talking out of both sides of my mouth, because I think the thing I really enjoyed about Severance is even if the whole season wasn't incredible, there are a few moments scattered throughout the season that I'm like, oh yeah, that episode is incredible, or that moment is incredible. The finale I think is really good. I love the premiere, and then I also loved, I think it's Cold Heart, the episode where they go on like the field trip. I thought was like incredible. So very fun show. Ends up being number 7 on the list because the audience put it at number 4 on their list.
Yeah, which obviously makes a lot of sense. I've spoken my piece about Severance season 2. It was not my favorite. It did not make my list. Basically, everything on my list was either an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10, and Severance was for me a 7 out of 10. So it wasn't quite in the range to make my show list this year. It's not that it was bad, but it definitely, I would not lie if I would be lying if I said it wasn't disappointing, compared to how much I really enjoyed season 1 and really felt like there was such good setup for season 2. But a lot of people still really enjoyed it. So an appropriate place on the list, I think.
I still think the show is like so well acted. The language of the show is so unique. I was thinking about this with like Plurabus, where I feel like Plurabus is sort of doing it has the biggest idea of a television show we've seen in a while, which is like this very fun sci-fi concept. And I do feel like the closest we've got is Severance. Well, Severance has the teensiest bit of like the dial is turned more to like mystery than I think Plurabus has been so far. It's hard not to, I think, appreciate what Severance is doing, even if I would agree that it was a step down from season 1. I think it was like wasn't as funny. I think it got very serious very quickly, in a way that ultimately, like by the end of season 2, I think does work. But yeah, Severance.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make an executive decision on the last one and which way to order them, if that's okay,
Okay.
because I think the next show is one that the audience and I both scored high, like both on our list, and then the one after that is one that you and I both scored on our list. So we'll put the one that the audience and I scored at number 6, which is another show that I think has been on for a few years and has had, maybe people feel like it has diminishing returns. Yeah, I'm super high on this show, and then the audience liked it enough to rank on the list, which is The Bear, which is, I think this sort of section is like the things that Taran doesn't vibe with as much as the rest of people do, between Severance and The Bear.
Yeah.
I'm like, we'll just not stop talking about how much I think The Bear is just a masterful piece of television. And I know that people don't agree with me in that same way, although the audience puts it at gets 4 points, so it's the lower end of the list. I put it at number 5 on my list, so it's like halfway through. I just think The Bear is so well acted, and it's so good, and the story it's telling is so delightfully good. And I just really appreciate The Bear for what it is, and don't think it's been a step down as it's been going along. Actually, I think it gets better as it goes along because it requires everything that's come before it to get to the point where we are. So I love The Bear, and I'm very happy that it made it onto the list.
Yeah. I have not even watched season 4, so I'm not even going to speak on The Bear. Of course, everyone knows if you've been listening to the podcast, you know my journey with The Bear and my attempt to get to season 4. But that's The Bear. What is then number? What number are we at?
We're going to be at number 5.
Number
which
5
is basically, there's a case that one of the other shows is not strictly a scripted show, but this will be the only unscripted show that we'll put on, which I think is like, there's some really good reality TV last year, but I don't think anything compares to The Devil's Plan, which you have at number 3 on your list. I have it all the way down at number 9 on my list, and yet I like it. It just was so. This show is so good. The show is so good. Just an excellent piece of reality television that we got to watch this year.
Yeah, I have it at number 3 because it's just a phenomenal show. I mean, obviously, I'm coming from a perspective of really enjoying reality television. I really enjoy strategic competitive reality television. I really like smart, competitive, strategic reality television. And The Devil's Plan is all of those things, and it's also really dramatic. If you ever watched The Genius back in the day, I'm currently doing a watch through of The Genius on my Patreon, and I'm watching through. And I'm seeing just how strong The Genius was, and also noticing just how good The Devil's Plan is as an evolution of The Genius. It is so much more dramatic and tense and often interesting. And some people may not like that because they liked the lightheartedness of something like The Genius. And in fact, season 2 of The Devil's Plan is slightly more controversial than season 1 because of how absolutely invested audiences were in the players and the storyline of the season and the way that things played out. And so I will agree. I think that I preferred season 1 to season 2, but that does not mean much because season 1 for me was a 10 out of 10 and season 2 for me is a 9 out of 10. Just really, really, really compelling stuff. The games are interesting. The characters, the players are really, really good. And again, the drama that comes from this show, the way that they do this, it makes it feel like life or death. And the way that the players operate is like they are at war. And there are some decisions made by some of the players in this season that are like super big and dramatic, and like, it's I can't describe enough. I genuinely think The Devil's Plan, I think it's the best reality show ever made, in terms of produced episodes. Obviously nothing for me is going to beat Big Brother with live feeds, but in terms of produced episodes, I really think that is the case. And so the fact that it's still number 3 of this year to me is pretty wild. But yeah, that's where I have it.
Yeah, I mean, I just echo everything you're saying. It just hits. It's a thing that they're doing in South Korea in terms of this game show that like nobody else does. I mean, I have other reality shows that I really love. Like I have Taskmaster on my list, but that's so different, and I just have such an appreciation for the way that this game is, every single game is like a complex board game you have to learn and teach, and then they figure out how to like weave this like great story into it, and I'm just like so impressed by The Devil's Plan. So I'm like super happy it's on the list. Love The Devil's Plan.
All right.
Okay,
So this we're already in the top 5. That was number 5. We're now into the top 4.
Yeah, and initially there was a little bit of a logjam, but I think I just did some math wrong. So but basically the next 3, they only get separated by 1 point each. So we have a 24 pointer, a 23, and a 22. So number 20,
I have a vague idea of what I think they might be.
Yes. So at number 4, we have a show that the audience and I ranked a couple slots higher than you did. But basically because of where you ranked it ends up being a little bit lower. This is, I think, unquestionably probably the breakout of the year. Hito Rivalry comes at the end of the year, but this show is at the beginning of the year. So the limited series Adolescence, Taran.
Yes. Yeah, so I had Adolescence ranked at number 5. Where did you have it?
Audience and I both had it at 3.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically Devil's Plan, one of the shows that I ranked above this one. I loved Adolescence. I mean, I have no complaints. It is firmly in the top tier of the year for me. And I love the one take approach. I love the story. I love the writing. I love the acting. There's really no serious weak point. I love that it was only 4 episodes. Again, it didn't drag in any capacity. I have no like big complaint about it. The only reason it was number 5 to me is that there were 4 other shows I happened to like even more.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And the thing that I think I've said this a little bit, the only reason I think I would say this when like the Emmys are happening in terms of like which show would I give best limited series to, the only knock I can give Adolescence is that like it's only 4 episodes. And so the idea that like if this show was like an 8 episode, season, would it have been as good? I don't know, but it's not. It's 4 episodes. Like everything you said, the like format of it, the writing, the performances. For me, this is a story that like hits very close to home. If I don't know how many people would know this, but one of my younger brothers went to jail for a pretty serious crime. So like the episodes for me that actually got, my mom is actually also an educator. So the things that got me were more, I feel like most people were like, oh, 1 and 3 are the like, which one is he gets booked into jail. 3 is the one-on-one with the psychologist. For me, it's actually 2 and 4, which is 2 is the school system. 4 is the like kind of like the family dealing with now they know what happened. Those hit me so hard. I think they're so strong pieces of television. I love the show. I think this is really good. Sort of same. I only have 2 other shows I thought were stronger than this, but I really love Adolescence and am really happy. I don't want them to do anything like I want them to touch this world, but I'm so intrigued to see what Jack Thorne and Stephen Graham do next after Adolescence.
Yeah, and it's a show that is very timely and speaks to something that is very important and deeply ingrained in our culture right now. But at the same time, it's not only that, it is also just really entertaining. Like
Agreed.
it is not limiting itself to that. In fact, maybe there's a world where it actually speaks like even more, like, because it's not really about it's speaking on broad things, but it's doing so by really narrowing focus.
Yeah.
You know,
Like literally never like divert, like it can't divert because it's all a one.
exactly.
It's like only about the family, this kid, Yeah.
It's almost like how The Wire would use this very entertaining plot to showcase a whole system in Baltimore. Adolescence does something similar, but much more narrow in scope, with maybe an even broader sort of end point, which I think is a really good way to do it. And again, maybe there's a world where it's commenting more, but it's not. That was not the purpose of it. The purpose was to kind of display it, and for you to try to find some kind of empathy in it, and that's, I think, really admirable and really interesting, and relatively unique in terms of how a show like this would be made.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, number 3 on the list. I think another one that fits our sensibility. Although interestingly, like the audience ranks it higher. This is their number 2 show of the year, as opposed to you and I, who rank at number 4, which is what many consider to be at least the best written show of all time. Maybe Andor is number 3 on the list here.
Yes. I was typing it in to guess, and then I realized that you already gave me the answer when you said that we ranked at number 4.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, apologies. Yes.
No worries. It was on me. Andor, yes. A phenomenal show. We talked obviously a lot about Andor this year. And it was, I mean, it again brought, I think, at least 2 or 3, maybe 4 of my favorite episodes of the year. Really, really phenomenally written, performed. The production of it struck me. I think I talked about this while we talked about Andor, but just like how this show feels more expensive and better produced than I think almost any other Star Wars media I've ever seen. And that's not because it has a bigger budget, although it certainly had a big one. It's because it was just so professionally done. It felt like there was no wasted effort. My only knock for Andor, the only reason it isn't like one of my favorite things of all time, season 2, is that it wasn't for me all at that level. In particular, the first arc, the first 3 episodes, I thought were substantially weaker than most of the rest of them. And then the ending 3 episodes as well, I thought were very, very strong, very, very good, but did not quite match the heights of the middle arcs. And so, I have a little bit of an up and down with Andor, which was the same for season 1 as well. But it still was very, very good and very, very strong, and definitely my favorite piece of Star Wars media ever made. And that says a lot because I was obsessed with Star Wars when I was a kid.
Yeah, I remember saying this when we were recapping it, where I think that although season 1 of Andor was probably better than season 2, for me, like the episode 8 and 9, like kind of like it reached higher highs than I think season 1 did, which is impressive because season 1 has like The Eye and No Way Out, or whatever that episode is called, like such good television, and yet like sort of the culmination of things that we get to in Andor season 2 is so impressive, between all of the Luthen stuff, Mon Mothma's speech, like, you know, the whole thing is just like it crescendos to this really excellent piece of television in terms of that second arc. Is that right? Or the third arc? It's the third arc.
I think it was the third, yeah.
Yeah, the third one, which is so good. Especially knowing this is a show. I know it was like incredibly expensive, but I think most people thought would, you know, I think once, if I'm remembering correctly, that like a lot of the mini arcs would have ended up being full seasons almost. Like there was a longer plan for the show that didn't happen because of the production budget. And
they
so
kind of pulled a Rome.
Right. So then the fact that they like were able to sort of like salvage it, and salvage sounds like a way worse word than it actually is, because it's like just a masterful piece of television, is really good. I do have things that I have over it, but I'm not mad for it to end up being third. It's the audience's second favorite show of the year. It's so good. And I do think like in sort of the RHAP PSR world, we end up, people, I think our audience leans a little more like genre-y than maybe another place would. So I'm kind of happy that this show gets that representation.
The fact that our audience put Wheel of Time, I think, speaks
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
significantly to that.
There was a year, I think the first year we ever did the movie list, where like 3 of the top 5 were just like the whatever Marvel movies came out that year. And I was like,
just wait till you see my movie list.
yeah. So yeah. So Andor number 3. Very
number
well
3.
deserved. Yeah.
All right, 2 left.
Okay.
I think I know already.
Well, do you want to guess, and then we'll talk about number 2 and then number 1? This is the year of, I think, again, I think for television especially, there's like one show that everybody loved. It's the thing that, well, I was going to say the answer, but I
think number 2 at this point, mathematically even, has to be The Rehearsal.
It is The Rehearsal. Yeah.
Okay.
Which you and I have as our number 2 show of the year. The audience has it a little bit lower down as their 5th show of the year, I believe. But I just think this is like masterful. I mean, I just said
Mhm.
that about Andor, and this is so different. Like, it's just
Yeah.
such a different thing than Andor, and yet it's so brilliant. I think Nathan Fielder is, for me, I think probably like the most intriguing human right now. I think that like him and Tim Robinson are like the comedians who I'm so intrigued by, and yet there's something that like Tim Robinson is trying to be stupid, and I'm like, I don't know how smart Nathan Fielder is, but I feel like he just has this sense about humanity and the way people function that he can sort of like figure out how to unfold a series of events that is so compelling and interesting. Television, this whole season, the idea of him trying to like fix the way airline safety works, I think is just so, and then the way that he then zooms in on things in particular to try and like address that problem. Like, you think about all the ridiculous things that happen in the show between a voice competition and the role playing stuff, and it's so good. And I don't know that we've ever seen anything like the rehearsal, and so I just commend the show for what it is because it's brilliant.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I was trying to figure out what is it about, like what is he doing here, because it is so unique. And it made me think about my book that I wrote, Behind the Mirror. I wrote a book about Big Brother, and in the book, I'm trying to do a few things at the same time. I'm trying to tell the story of the show while also touching on themes and like being entertaining. And so I'm trying to be entertaining. I'm trying to also tell a long story by telling shorter stories, and also use those stories to tell an even bigger story about the themes of what's of the book. And I was thinking about the rehearsal, and I was thinking about how I think Nathan Fielder is doing that with like comedy bits. Like, he's taking a show like Nathan For You, which already
Mm.
was a fairly unique concept, but like Nathan For You is essentially a sketch comedy reality show where he is um every episode doing ridiculous things, and and it's really funny, and it's really awkward, and it's cringe comedy, and it's all of these things. And in the rehearsal, what he's doing is taking those things and turning them into a larger story.
Yeah.
And it's not just turning it into a larger, it's not just stringing them together. It's also a larger story with themes, with like actual commentary, with actual like threads woven through. He's telling a story. He's telling many stories, but he's telling these stories through the most absurd and ridiculous things. And it's so sort of aspirational to exactly the kind of storytelling that I want to be doing. That you know, I cannot help but just be awed by how masterful it is, and how effortlessly he seems to weave these threads through the most ridiculous and absurd concepts. You know, like big babies, and
Yeah.
bringing in partners to watch their partner act in scenes, and like all kinds of just really ridiculous things woven together in a way that can make you think and make you emotional while making you laugh. And it's all done in reality as well, like with many real people in real situations. And it's just incredibly done. The only reason it wasn't my number one is honestly that it is so different that it doesn't exactly scratch the itch that I think that a lot of people would be looking
Mhm.
to scratch when they're watching a TV show. And it's certainly not for everyone. But for me, it was a 10 out of 10. It was just phenomenal television.
Yeah, there's something about the way that, and it's funny to think about it this way because he comes off as so socially awkward. And he said this thing about, I think it was about the curse. And he got asked this question of like, or he was commenting on the fact that people say, "Oh, I can't watch your stuff because it makes me like uncomfortable. I get very like anxious when I'm watching it." And he's like, "But don't you have to live your life and go through the world? And there's like anxious, there's like doesn't that like he's like that's what is uncomfortable for me of just having to go through life, and these are the things." But there's a way that he sees the way humans behave and function, and then he can like create a situation to explore the absurdity of that thing, which is just, I just appreciate it so much and think he's a genius and love the rehearsal. And to me, I would just like, there's just one thing I thought was better. There's one thing I thought, and it's very different, but I just thought this other thing was more entertaining than the rehearsal, even though I thought this is basically a perfect piece of television.
Yeah. All right.
So
And what is that thing?
we all ranked it number one. You, me, and the audience all in perfect agreement. This is what I think. I think, undoubtedly the thing that everyone who watched it thought it was the best thing of the year, which is the Pit. Which is funny. I think that the rehearsal is this thing that I've never seen before, and the Pit is an iteration of a thing that I think we have seen before, and yet doing it at the highest, like, level that you can. So happy that the Pit is number one, Taran.
Yeah. Universally ranked number one. It's winning all the awards as well, and I think deservedly so. And it's coming back this week.
So fun. So
very
excited.
timely. What can we say about the Pit that we haven't already said at this point? It is exactly as you described. It is fulfilling. It is very much, I think, for many people, scratching an itch that they have been feeling for a very long time in television. It was 15 episodes. It was every single episode was jam-packed, captured your attention. You could not look away. It was full of drama. It was full of interesting things. It was also commentating on the state of medicine in the US and all kinds of other things happening right now. It very clearly had this sincere and passionate desire to represent the things that it was showing for the people that were going through them. The acting was great, the writing was great, the structure of it was so good. We can talk about ER all we want, but it really did feel like it was bringing back a golden age of television that was so refreshing in a streaming world where we wait 2 years and it's 6 or whatever episodes. Because like
You said
the
this
reason
6-7 episodes. Were you about to say that?
Oh, maybe. The reason why a lot of people are frustrated with a fewer episodes is because it's a few amount of episodes and then it's years and years and years. I sometimes like a fewer amount of episodes because when it's 10 episodes or 12 episodes, people don't know these days how to fill that many episodes. And so it just
Agreed.
ends up being filler. The Pit did not have that problem at all. Every single time an episode of The Pit aired, I was excited to watch it. I sat down. I was glued to the screen the whole time. Never once thought about looking at my phone or doing anything else. And then I would wait again for another week. And then I would do the same thing every single week without fail. And that brought me back to my childhood because it's hard to feel that way. It's hard to, even with the best of shows, it's hard not to feel like, okay, here's the show. It's time to like get into the mindset and like prepare myself and like whatever. Whenever the Pit came on, I was just like, throw this on. I don't care what else is happening in my life. I'm ready.
Well, I remember like there being a moment where it was like, oh, the Pit might be the show right now because I would chat with you and you were talking about you're like, yeah, the Pit is the thing I watch on Thursdays, which I remember there was Severance and there was something else. I can't remember. The Yellow Jackets might have been airing at the same, like Traitors was on, and you were like, no, I'm like running to the Pit. The Pit's the first thing I'm watching, which I feel like we had such an abundance of television that you could watch at the time, and to choose the Pit. I recently just rewatched a bunch of the Pit because my mom watched it while I was home for the holidays, and I would like look in the room and I'd be like, oh, you watching the Pit? And I'd just like sit on the bed with her and would like end up watching the rest of the episode. I'd be like, oh, you're gonna watch one more? Okay, I'll stay and watch one more. And it was interesting to because I hadn't rewatched it. The thing that I think the Pit did really well, and I think that we talked about this when we talked about the first episode of the show and why it worked, is it centralized you with Dr. Robbie. Dr. Robbie is for sure the main character. And actually, this like the screen we have up on IMDb is actually perfect for this point, which is you can see the poster of the Pit, which is Dr. Robbie and his face, and the Pit is over him. And then to the right of him are all the other characters on the show, including him, which is clearly from like a press event that they did. But it centralized you in Dr. Robbie. Dr. Robbie is the guy that you follow. Almost every episode is entirely from his point of view, except where we sort of like divert off. And in that first episode, everything, if I remember correctly, is pretty much from Dr. Robbie's perspective. It's like Dr. Robbie meets this character. Oh, like he has a relationship with Dr. Collins. Oh, he has a relationship with Langley. Like it's like, what is the connection to Dr. Robbie? He is so captivating as a central character, and you root for him so hard. Noah Wyle is so good in this role. And then every other character you meet, even if you don't like them, you have an opinion about them, and they're engaging and captivating television. I actually give the show a lot of credit for its casting, because I think that when I was doing this with my mom, when I was watching it, I would be like another character, and I go, oh my God, I love them. Like they're so great. And like to the point later in the episodes where like you start to like meet the night shift and you're like, oh my God, this character who shows up and they're going to be in the last 3 episodes. They're incredible. Like what a great television character. And when you're invested in all of those characters in this show, you're then invested in like the patient that they have, and like, oh, what's the story they're trying to tell with this person who gets admitted into the hospital, who's now going to be under the care of this character. It's just so excellently crafted. And to the point of like your point about it's 15 episodes, and yet I don't want every show to be 15 episodes because they can't fill it. It is really a testament that this show could do 15 episodes, and every episode feels like
it felt like they could do more.
100%. You're like, I didn't literally the joke that I had with my mom was like, I'm going to save the finale for one night. So we stopped watching, and then she like saved it for another night. And I watched it with her, and then she had fallen asleep. So I woke her up. It's like, you did fall asleep. She's like, oh, I'll rewind it. And she would watch it. And I was tempted to just like watch it again. But I did for a little bit, and then she fell asleep again. And so I kept hearing the end of the episode music play because my mom had fallen asleep so many times. And yet I was still like, man, that last episode like ends, and you're like, I know he has to go home at the end of a shift, but I would just like to spend more time with Dr. Robbie, which we will this upcoming week.
We will.
Although disappointingly weekly. I would love to just binge all of the Pitt, please. But I can't.
Well,
it's okay.
This is the thing too. And this is, I'm sure, partly because of how quickly it came out, but like with a cast of so many characters and so many different sort of like things that happened, I feel no need to like rewatch it or get a refresh. I feel like I know I still remember everything that happened.
Yeah.
Like that's so nice.
So the way the show is formatted, it is not like there are a ton of things the thing that I also was really impressed by was I don't know whether ER did this as well and all these other shows, but it's so smart to be set at a training hospital, because what ends up happening like so many times is like person comes in, they sort of get assessed, and then like the doctor, the senior resident will be like to the trainee, it would be like, what do you think? And then that person's like has to regurgitate all of their knowledge in a way that is then not even fully understandable for an audience member, but close enough that you're like, oh, okay, like this is what's happening. It's just so smart. It's so smart.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. That is the list. Let me read it
TV.
out from start to finish.
Go for it. You want me to do it?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me.
You don't have
to
it.
Remember exactly.
All right. Number 10, we put as Squid Game.
Mm-hmm.
Number 9, we put as Wheel of Time. Number 8, The Last of Us. Number 7, Severance. Number 6 is The Bear. Number 5 is The Devil's Plan. 4 is Adolescence. 3 is Andor. 2 is The Rehearsal. And number 1 is The Pitt.
All right. Let's do a couple of quick honorable mentions, and then we'll get to the movies. For me, I really just have a couple. Murderbot I thought was very fun. And then another reality show on Netflix, Physical Asia, I thought was very cool. It's like a physically competitive show where they brought in a bunch of different countries from around Asia, which was not only cool because the competitions themselves were really fun, but also cool because of the mix of cultures that interacted. And so like I got to see all kinds of different athletes from different cultures competing against each other, have different mindsets and strategies. That was really cool by itself. Netflix has colors for the subtitles so that you know which country is speaking at the time that you're watching. So very fun show to check out as well. And then Murderbot is one I would recommend as well to check out.
I think the only other thing that you had on your list that didn't make it was Dexter Resurrection. You had
I'm surprised Dexter didn't make it on the list. I kind of didn't notice to honorable mention that, but Dexter Resurrection was phenomenal. Honestly, I still haven't gone back to finish it from when my TV broke, which is maybe why it's not higher on my list, but I put it at number 7. I thought it was a really, really good show, and highly recommend checking out Dexter Resurrection.
For the audience, they had it at number 11, so like sort of
Mm.
just missed the cut in terms of like getting any points. So maybe it would have, yeah. Basically, if it had got like a little bit higher on either your list, my list, or the audience, it would have made on. I didn't have it on my list. I did really like it, but there's so much good TV. My honorable mentions, the only two things that we haven't mentioned so far. Taskmaster, I talked about. It's just my favorite. I think it's my favorite show. I can't quite say it's like my favorite. Like, am I rating it number 1? Like, no, because there's like, it's just a sort of comedy
Yeah, I know
show,
what you
but I
mean.
do
It's like
love it.
it's almost like The Rehearsal in the sense that it is just
Right.
so different than anything else that even though it's so good at what it does, it
Yeah.
feels hard to put it above everything else, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
It's the only thing that I'm willing to risk going to the United States for. I'm going to be going to the live Taskmaster show later this month in Philadelphia, so I'm very excited. And then the other thing I had on my list, I had at number 10. I think it was worth of like one little honorable mention, is Yellow Jackets, which I thought, like, for a show that's very fun, had maybe its best season since season 1. So I really like Yellow Jackets. But yeah, it's on the end list. For the audience, the only other things that they were in the audience top 10 that didn't make the list are Heated Robbery, which came in at number 9, and Paradise, which came in at number 10. Which I think Paradise, I think most people would say, like, had a couple of really amazing episodes. Everything else was like fun and not bad, but it had some stellar episodes of television. So get some audience love. Those are the honorable mentions, I think.
I think shows like The Studio and Hacks are also ones that you're likely to see at like awards.
Task, the Adults is a comedy that I thought, like, I think kind of gets forgotten about that it came out this year, but it got a fair bit of love from the audience.
Task, I still haven't finished. I'm only a few episodes in, but honestly, will likely crack this list if it continues to be as good as it is, for me at least.
Yes.
All right.
Very good.
Let's move on to movies. This is going to be a supersized podcast.
That's okay. Let's do it. Okay.
Movies will probably be a bit quicker.
Okay. Number 10. Taran, I think you thought that this would get bumped off the list because you had on your list, and probably you were the only one, which is true, but just the way the math works out. Number 10 is The Life of Chuck, which is a movie that I really like, and I think kind of went under the radar. I think it had a very bad rollout in terms of theater. So I feel like if people found it, they really like this movie. This is a Stephen King adaptation. It's made by Mike Flanagan, who did a lot of the Netflix horror television shows. So he's sort of like did the greatest horror writer maybe ever in Stephen King, but does sort of a more lighthearted, sort of more in his like what other stuff has Stephen King done that's like more like this than like, it's not like
Stand
horror.
By Me.
Yeah, Stand By Me, things like that. So Life of Chuck, I thought it was a very good movie. I just kind of like forgot it came out this year. So
yeah. I mean, it's although I mean, yeah, it's hard actually. Like, it does say 2024 on IMDb.
Yeah, but that's not real though, because that's when it came out at TIFF, and then it had a it did have a theatrical run in 2025. It's definitely a 2025 movie.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike Flanagan, Stephen King, it's a good combination. Honestly, I feel like Mike Flanagan can sometimes go a little off the rails with his own stuff. That's how I've felt. And so when he's doing something with Stephen King, it feels like Stephen King can also go off the rails sometimes. But I like the combination. It's a very good combination. The two of them work well, very well together in terms of adapting his writing. The Life of Chuck, I watched very recently, and I thought I would enjoy it. And I think I enjoyed it about as much as I thought I would, and then a bit more. But in a weird sense, when the movie started, I was like, okay, I see what's happening. And the dialogue is not exactly where I'd want it to be. It's a little too Mike Flanagan.
Mike Flanagan.
But then, as we moved into this, the movie is told in 3 acts, and we move into the second act, and almost immediately, I fell in love with the movie. There's a really, really phenomenal scene that happens midway through, and from that point forward, it's so good. And really, really compelling. And I really liked the way that it told the story ultimately, even if I do kind of wish the first act had been a bit shorter and maybe a little better written. it's hard to say too much about it without spoiling it, so I won't talk too much on it. But you see all these words on the poster: masterpiece, magical, it's a wonderful life, it's a feel good, unforgettable experience, beautiful. It is one of those movies that like will get you thinking about what life means, and not really in a bad way. And so it was just good. I just really liked it.
Yeah, I like it too. I saw it at TIFF, won the People's Choice Award. I said this to you before we started. I actually saw it the last day. My ticket was always for the last day, and then that morning it won the People's Choice Award, and my ticket like happened to be for a little bit later. So that was really interesting to watch it, knowing that like so many people at the festival had loved it. I did really still love it. Like I was worried a little bit sometimes that the expectation would be too high. It does have one of my favorite scenes of the last few years in just movies in general. In that second half of the movie, it's so good. I just think they like totally botched the rollout of this movie because it like won the
Yeah.
People's Choice, and then they just kind of like didn't know what to do with it. I think, which I think is fair. It is kind of a tricky movie to market, I guess, a little bit. But okay, we then have like a tie, a three-way tie here, which we'll have to figure out how to break for 7, 8, 9. Just a wild collection of. I think we could pretty easily put Wicked for Good at number 9. The audience was it only made the audience score. For me, I liked it. I thought the first one is so much better than the second one. I don't know. I didn't think this was amazing. I mean, it's fine. It's it's good. It's good.
I still have not seen the second
Yeah,
one.
I would not have had this so high on the list. The audience, and I was saying this to you before. The movies I feel like are even more sort of like populist than the TV shows, because I think like people just go to the movies less often, and so it's kind of like
It's harder to see movies,
yeah.
in a timely fashion.
And I think a lot of people see Wicked for Good, and so then it gets a lot like even if it
Yeah.
gets a lot of like lower down votes, it gets votes. It was third on the list for the audience, which I think is like
Wow.
yeah, I think it's like way too high. But what are you gonna do?
That's surprising considering I've mostly heard mild disappointment with the second movie.
Just like a bunch of people voted. 5 people voted for it as their number 1 movie, and then it kind of like got votes almost at every spot on someone's
Huh?
list. So yeah, it ends up being number 9. I think we can safely put it at number 9. Number 8 is a little hard, and I think we'll just the audience put one of these on the list and didn't put the other one. You put them on both your lists. This is Bring Her Back and K-Pop Demon Hunters are the other two on this list, where the audience did vote for K-Pop Demon Hunters at number 5. And you put Bring Her Back very high on your list. So that's sort of you have to figure out how to bring. I think it's up to you because you put.
I'm happy to put Bring Her Back at number 9 or sorry, number 8.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and then K-Pop Demon Hunters at number 7. Yeah.
Yes. So Bring Her Back number 3 for me, and was it on any other list?
No.
So it's just me.
It got votes. It just didn't
Okay.
didn't break
Yes.
the top 10.
I've talked about this movie before, but I thought it was so good. When I talked about like wait till you see my movie list, it's primarily because it's a lot of horror on there.
You know what? It did get a lot of it. It like is tied for like 12th on the audience list, so it's not even that much
It
further
was
back.
so good.
Yeah, I think it's really good.
There's just not really any weakness to it. It was really well acted, really well written. It was very scary. Sally Hawkins was incredible.
Yeah.
I've talked about that. I thought Billy Barrett was really good. I thought that like it was just really compelling and really emotional. And it had just a raw sense of just I can't think of the word.
There's
it was
an
so
there's an
earnest.
yeah,
It was
there
so
is an
earnest in how devastating it was.
yeah, this is I mean, I think by now we've realized like the Philippou brothers are a little bit focused on grief. And there is such a way that you can empathize with like a thing that happened to somebody and that they've lost somebody, and also be so unnerved by the lengths that they are going to like process or maybe not process that grief. And this movie is I think fits that perfectly. It's I think it's in many ways I think I like it more than Talk to Me, which is their other
I certainly do.
the film that sort of like they broke out for. I think the performances in this film between both Sally Hawkins, also the boy in this movie. There's specifically one of the most disgusting scenes I've seen involved in the kitchen. I think is like so. Actually, maybe now there's multiple. Now that I'm thinking about it, is there other? Yeah, I think there are like
There were
multiple.
multiple scenes you could be talking about, but my mind did go to the kitchen.
Yeah. Although now I think that there's like two kitchen things, but maybe I'm anyway. It's so gross. In the best way, in a way that people who like horror do like it. And yeah, it's just like it's also it is quite moving, and then it's gonna like make you incredibly grossed out that you're like moved. So it's good. I like it. I didn't have it on my list, but I don't fault you for having it on yours. I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean it's exactly my kind of thing too. So yeah, which is why I was happy to put it behind what is a very very popular thing, which was K-pop Demon Hunters.
Yeah, which the audience had at number 5, and you had at number 8. Am I reading?
Number
No,
9.
you had a number 9. Yeah, I didn't have it on my list, but I this is great. It's maybe the movie sensation of the like. I guess not really, because there was like theatrical movies that had moments, but there's really like this has been in the top 10 of Netflix movies for like 28 weeks or something, which is just astounding. It probably is like in terms of like movies that have the broadest appeal, probably has to, because so many kids watch this thing. They like literally put it in movie theaters. Big deal. It's getting a lot of it's getting the animated buzz. They get the Critics' Choice Award last night. It won Best Animated Feature. That probably means it's the front runner for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars as well. It is really good. It's really well made. Yeah, the music is great. K-pop Demon.
For me, when I started hearing, because like Golden is like the big song, the big single so far that has been going around, but it's not even necessarily. Although I think it's not the only one.
I do love
But
Soda Pop. I love Soda Pop.
Soda Pop is, I think, one of the other ones that's going around. But it's again like all of the songs are very good.
Yeah.
And so when I started hearing that song, I it sort of made me reevaluate the movie even better, as an even better movie, because I was like, man, that song is really good. And I could just listen to this.
Yeah.
And that's extremely rare for me. Like I'm not watching the Frozen and listening to the soundtrack. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like a soundtrack person generally. Maybe the Sunshine soundtrack, maybe the soundtrack for Once. But like outside of that, so the fact that these songs are really hitting for me as a 33-year-old man, I think speaks to the craft and how well it was put together. And the movie itself is just a good time. It's well animated. It's easy to watch. I think its popularity is not a mistake. It's not an accident. It's doing so many things right. And so, it's a movie that is probably not going to last on my list. It's number 9. And so as I watch more, because there's plenty more to watch, it will likely get pushed off. But I was happy to recognize it here for now.
Yeah. Fun. Okay. The next two are tied, and I have them on my list, and they're actually my number 1 and number 2 movies of the year. So they actually come in at number 5 and 6, and I will break that. Even though I have one of them as my number 1 movie, the audience did sort of like tie the game by putting a movie at number 10 on the list. So we'll put at number 6 my number 1 movie of the year. So the only one who voted for it. This is Hamnet. And I've never had a movie going experience like Hamnet. I saw it at the Toronto National Film Festival. I've never heard so many people just like sobbing in a theater. You could just like, there was like, the soundtrack was basically people like blowing their nose because they were just like crying and wiping the tears away.
Should I see this in theaters? Because I didn't think it would. I didn't think it was the kind of movie I needed to see in theaters.
The thing that's hard is like I got to watch it in a sold out theater of people who are like theater
Who care about it.
Yes, who like so care about it. So I can't say that you're gonna have the same experience. And then the other thing about this movie is I know this is the movie that I think is getting the most, like, it's not like Amelia Perez, but it's the most like, oh, that's your front runner? Like, you stupid people who go to film festivals, like, that's the one you thought is good? Like, actually,
Mhm.
no, it's not good. Like, I think One Battle After Another is, like, very much in the number one driver's seat for, like, win Best Picture. This coming out of festivals kind of felt like it had it. Um, I have a very good friend of mine who does not like this movie, and the problem with them they find with the movie is that they don't feel like it's realistic in terms of the point of this movie is that it is William Shakespeare and his wife, and the premise is that it is that their son dies, and then he goes on and creates the play Hamlet. His son is named Hamnet. At the time, there's interchange. The theory that like those two things were interchangeable, that Hamnet and Hamlet are basically the same thing, and now we have Hamlet. I think it's like so her point is that like they just picked sort of like one of his plays. To me, it's like very important that Hamlet is like the most well known, like maybe other than Romeo and Juliet, like the most famous Shakespeare thing, because so much of what this movie is about the way that you can your grief can be turned, like you can do something with that, and you can create something that like your love
Mhm.
for a person can persevere, and it's very important that like we know of the thing that like perseveres, that like Hamlet is
Yeah.
a play. I literally at the film festival, I think like 2 movies before, saw like Riz Ahmed do a version of Hamlet. Like so to me there's so much that I think like really vibes with me in terms of like how much I love TV and movies and culture, that like a thing about how you could create a thing that could have lasting impact, and you could have done that thing out of the love you have for something else or somebody else, is like super important. So I just love this movie. I do get if other people are like, not my thing, but that's okay. It's my number one movie of the year. I have not rewatched it because I'm a little bit like, what if watching it at home is not the same as watching it in
Mhm.
the theater? But for now, it's my number one movie. And so it's my number two movie, which is also an incredibly sad movie that I like, but I think is, people quite like. So my number two, it's the audience's number 10. It's Sentimental Value, which is the Joachim Trier movie that stars Renee Rensvat and Stellan Skarsgård. This relationship is it's also very much about art and the creation of art. Basically, a father and daughter who are like both. He's a director, she's an actor. He wants to make a movie with her to kind of basically see if he can like make amends for being shitty to her. And I just think it's like extraordinarily good, and I love it so very much. So I put it at number 2. The audience put it at number 10. Highly recommend. This is one that I think like this and No Other Choice probably are like the front runners maybe for international. Secret Agent is having a little bit of a run for like international um uh, feature, but I really like Sentimental Value, and it's sort of pull at your heartstrings, like family drama. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I plan to watch this. I plan to watch Hamnet, and I will be seeing No Other Choice soon. So this is again like why, for me especially, my list is far from complete at the moment. But I'm excited to watch all of these things.
Okay, number 4 is one that you actually have it ranked the highest of anybody. You have it ranked, I think 5. Then I have it 6, and the audience says it's 7. This is, I think, a movie that a lot of people liked until they saw the ending of the movie, and we won't spoil the ending of the movie. But this is Bugonia, which I think is maybe the best acted movie of the year. I think
Mm.
between Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons. There's a movie about 2 cousins, I believe they're in the movie, who kidnap the CEO of a company because they believe she's an alien. That's the premise of Bugonia. It's so good. There, I love Bugonia. I think this movie is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and when I was looking at movies that I watched this year, that I'd rated highly this year, Bugonia is one that just really stuck out. I don't know where other things land, but like other movies that I had rated highly, I was like, what had happened in that movie exactly? Like, this is burned into your memory. You know exactly what happened. And the characters and how well they were portrayed really stick with you. That you really get stuck into them. And so it was just so well made, so well acted. While also again having something to say that I thought was very interesting.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, definitely not one that I can recommend a lot of people, but it is a Yorgos movie, so that's kind of to be expected. Uh, but man, just really good stuff, and we talked about it recently, so I won't go too long on it. But I really really enjoyed it. I put it number 5. Yeah.
Okay, number 3 is a movie that I ended up I just think I talked about the two movies I ranked sort of 1 and 2. So things just end up getting pushed down a little bit. The audience rated this one pretty highly. You rated it pretty highly. Number 3 is Weapons, which I talked about like sensations of the year. I think, I mean, there are kind of, I mean, I actually think it's a really good year for like original movies. Between this and some of the other stuff we're gonna chat about, but Weapons, so fun. This is maybe one of the most fun movie going experiences of the year.
Yeah, I have Weapons 2 and Bring Her Back 3. And I loved them both for such wildly different reasons. When I think about Bring Her Back, I think about some of like the most disturbing things from that movie. I think about some of the like most emotional things from that movie. And when I think about Weapons, I think about some of the funniest things
Yeah.
from that movie. And I think about some of the most fun and interesting things from that movie. It's still a disturbing movie, but I just had such a good time watching it. I can't, I think Barbarian I also really love, and if I had to choose between the two, I'm still not entirely sure which one I would choose. Probably Weapons, but
I
I
think I
did love
choose Weapons.
Barbarian.
I think I choose Weapons.
But it's just such a good time. And the thing about Weapons 2 is that unlike Bring Her Back, I think it is a lot more accessible. I think that a lot of people can watch and enjoy Weapons. And I think there's value in that. I think that Weapons make sense to me as something that is a lot higher on this list.
Yeah. Yeah, this was yeah, I mean, there's another movie that between 1 and 2, like there's another movie that I think also is a horror movie, and yet this to me feels like the biggest horror movie of the other one. There's something a little that feels a little more like mainstream, even though it is a horror movie. This feels like the biggest horror movie we got of the year, which is funny to say. It is good. I know some people who have issues with it as well. Hard not to feel like Aunt Gladys is like the breakout character of 2025. So, okay, number 2. It's actually close. Like only 3 points between number 2 and 1. And this one I think mostly gets you were lower on it than I was, and then the audience was higher on it than I was. So this is the audience number 1 movie of the year. Hard to feel like it hasn't been the number 1. And again, I think this is a little bit of like the genre RHAP stuff happening. So number 2 is One Battle After Another. The Paul Thomas Anderson epic. Seems to be the Oscar frontrunner about a man who sort of gets sucked back into his revolutionary world, revolutionary life. I do think this movie is incredible. I have it number 3 because I have those other 2 sort of sad movies over this one. This movie is great. It's phenomenal.
Yes, I definitely dragged this down a bit. I put it at number 6, but not because I disliked it. I really liked it. In fact, I had a wonderful time watching it. I drove up to LA. I went to the Vista Theater. After all, I saw it in Vista Vision.
Did it work? Did it work the whole time, or did it break?
It worked the whole time.
Oh.
I really enjoyed the Vista Theater experience.
Okay,
I had never been there before. They play trailers from, I assume it's the director every time, but it was a bunch of Paul Thomas Anderson trailers. So like the first one popped up and it was Magnolia, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And so it was really cool. It was a really cool experience. I really enjoyed the movie. I thought that Sean Penn was phenomenal in this movie.
I totally agree.
I thought Benicio del Toro was phenomenal in this movie. And who played the daughter? She was incredible as well.
Yeah, her name is I'm forgetting it, but I'll
Yeah, I don't even know. I think it was one of her first roles, right? Like that was
first
the
film role. I think she'd been in television, but she hadn't been in TV. Chase Infinity is her name.
Just really, really good, and obviously, Leonardo was great here. It's a really good movie. There's few weaknesses. It's, I would say, probably not a movie that I felt super connected to. There wasn't a lot in it that I could like emotionally dig into, and that's probably why it falls behind some of the others on my list.
You were saying before that you really identify with the Christmas Adventurers. You were saying that to me.
Grace, chill. We're not supposed to talk about that. It's a very funny movie. It does have some things to say, which I think is always always elevates a film in my eyes, at least. And I think that there's a scene toward the end, a very tense sort of chase scene that is one of my favorites, like chase scenes I've seen in at least a very long while. And so just really a really fun time, and I can understand why this is a front runner to win, because it really hits on a lot of things for a lot of people, while still being very daring and interesting and unique. And I think it's one of the most crowd pleasing PTA movies he's maybe ever made.
Yeah, I think it's the most crowd. But is there anything? I mean, like There Will Be Blood has, sort of like.
But that's
But
not
I've
really
even had.
that crowd pleasing. It's
Yeah,
so slow and methodical.
that's true.
Um,
Yeah,
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 I think it might be.
yeah. Yeah, it is tremendously good. I think it's so good. I think I'm with you. Like Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro, I think are exquisite. I think they're gonna have a little bit of a problem. I mean, the Critics' Choice Award. I think Jacob Elordi won for Frankenstein last night, which feels like I think he's really good, and I don't think he's as good as either. And I think he's not. I mean, to be support is he did he win supporting and the movie is named Frankenstein? That's I guess he's
I'm
Frankenstein's
not sure.
monster technically.
I could very much understand why he went supporting, though. He's almost barely in the movie.
But still, that's a little silly, but that's okay.
I I did not enjoy Frankenstein personally.
Yeah, fair
I
enough.
thought it was very fine.
I like it, but I'm not like over the moon about it. Regardless, I think the two of them, Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro, are gonna have a little bit of like vote splitting problems because I think they're like both so
Mm,
good. They're basically like the opposite of each other. Like one
yeah,
is like in that movie, there's such a dichotomy. Ah, it's so good. I've seen it twice. I saw it twice in IMAX. I would love to I probably will rewatch it at some point. I think it's exceptional. But it's not number one. Number one is Sinners, Ryan Coogler's movie, a vampire movie. It was your number one. It was the audience's number two, and it was my number four. I just had it ranked below One Battle for Another in my two sad movies. So I'm actually kind of glad I did. I was a little worried that I would like bump it out of the number one spot. I'm actually kind of glad I didn't end up doing that. So number one is Sinners, Taran. Your number one movie of the year.
yeah. I mean, I think I said it when it came out. The title of the podcast was like new favorite movie, whatever. Because it is. It's. I rated this a 10 out of 10, and that is very rare for movies for me. I think I think I said this at the time. Like the last 10 out of 10 I gave was probably like Call Me by Your Name, or maybe it was T2. I don't remember which one came out later. But like that's rare for me. It's rare for me to have to like, and it for me that rating only exists for movies that truly transport me somewhere else. Like I'm sitting there in the theater, and similar to Life of Chuck in this way almost, there's a moment about halfway through the movie that just transcends what a normal movie is capable of in my eyes. And it just teleported me away, and the whole thing was just so compelling. I watched this at the Irvine IMAX. It's a massive screen, and I just got sucked into this world. It was so it's such a good looking movie.
Mhm.
It really has so many different components to it that are so, and it's not like there's necessarily any one thing that stands out in terms of its production, because it's all just so well done. And that's why I think I when you mentioned earlier, it doesn't feel like a horror movie, even though it is,
I know.
because it's so polished, and not in a bad way. Horror is often good in its rough edges, but this feels it just goes down so smooth, and it's so good. I could probably watch Sinners a million times and not get sick of it. I loved it. It's genuinely one of my favorite movies of all time.
The thing for me that like I think really is the music of this film. It's just so good. Between obviously there's like the one sort of like dream sequency scene, or like not dream sequence, but like sort of like that throughout time, summoning of musicians, and then the other one, like the vampire dance, like the Irish number is so good as well. Like, yeah, and then the performances here, the visuals of the movie, the story. I think Sinners is great. Very happy that it ranks number one. Again, I'm like a little like I didn't have it number one. I have it 4, but certainly well deserving of being the number one movie. I think especially for like our audience's taste as well, that this is what comes out on top.
Yeah. All right.
Let me run down the list very quickly.
Yes.
So number 10 is The Life of Chuck. Number 9 is Wicked for Good. 8 is Bring Her Back. 7 is KPop Demon Hunters. 6 is Hamnet. 5 is Sentimental Value. 4 is Bugonia. 3 is Weapons. 2 is One Battle After Another. And the number one movie of the year is Sinners.
Yes. The only movies that did not make it from my list were 28 Years Later, which I loved, but I understand not everybody did. I also really liked Superman. I thought Superman was the best superhero movie of the year, easily.
I thought Superman was going to get a lot more love. It ends up as number 8 on the audience list. So it did. Okay. I just thought it was
number 8 for me as well.
I thought it was so it's number 9 for the audience. I just thought it was going to be more popular than it, especially for our audience. I thought it was going to be higher, but it wasn't.
I thought it was really, really fun. And then I also squeezed Blue Moon into my list at number 10, which I really enjoyed. Linklater is doing his thing with Ethan Hawke, where and I didn't realize this was the movie. It's just like, it's basically just one long scene of Ethan Hawke acting his ass off.
Yep. It's very good. I really like it. Okay, the audience ones, I think probably people might talk about a big snub for us not making this is Wake Up Dead Man. That
would have been number 11 for me.
Yeah, the audience also very respectable. It was just an accident, which I do think is like a tremendous movie. That's the movie that won the Palme d'Or. Very good if you can check it out. I do feel like our audience, as much as I talked about them being populist, I do also then feel like the people who do fill out like every like thing on the list, like it was just an accident, can end up being like the 7th most popular film of our audience, which is kind of cool. My movies that I had on my list that didn't make it are Marty Supreme, which I think is excellent and very fun, and I think
I haven't seen it yet.
I also had Mickey 17, and I had The Materialist, and The Materialist I put on my list mostly as a spite list because everyone who says it's bad is wrong. And so
Grace, I just watched The Materialist. I need to talk to you about it.
I think most people hate it, and that's fine. You can hate it, but you're also wrong that you hate it.
I need to know why people hate it. I watched it too late, and I missed the discourse.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
I didn't love it, but
yeah. And then the other movie I have on my list, I have it number 6, that nobody else will have seen this. It's called Blue Heron. It's one of my favorite movies. It's a Canadian director. It is just an excellent film. It's very sad. It was like also one of the sad TIFF films I saw. It's about the director is sort of like a self-autobiographical kind of like look at her childhood, where she had a stepbrother who was like had mental health problems at that time in like the 80s, early 90s, like you didn't really talk about. And so he just was like kind of a chaotic agent of their house. It's just like extremely, extremely good. I love it. I don't know how people are going to see it, but I hope people do get to see it because I do love it so much. And that's what was on my list.
All right. So hopefully there's plenty of stuff for you to check out, and then in the coming months we will do a more curated, finalized top things of 2025 once I've checked out more of these movies, maybe finished a couple of these shows like Task. I think the show list is probably relatively locked in at this point because there's not a lot that we missed there, but movies in particular I'm excited to revisit in a couple of months. Either way, let's cap this off. We're going to do a couple of spoiler sections. We're going to talk about Stranger Things, and we'll talk about Plurabus. And I think we can probably start with Stranger Things.
Let's do it.
And we'll, again, big supersized episode, but we've been off the air for a little while. So
yeah.
All right, Grace. Stranger Things has finally concluded, and I feel like very controversial, lots of mixed feelings.
Wow. Yeah. I feel like Stranger Things was very controversial, but for not the reasons that I thought people wouldn't really like it. I think, we don't really have to get into this, but I think it got a little bit of like review bombed to a degree for the reasons that
And
things get review bombed in 2025 and 2026.
sorry, just to remind people, spoilers are
Yes.
coming. So, we'll put like maybe a timestamp in for when we start Plurabus after
Yeah.
Stranger Things, if you only want to do that. But we will be spoiling Stranger Things in this discussion.
My feeling is that, I wasn't blown away by it, but I didn't think it was bad. I think that all of the same problems I had with the first batch of episodes, which Mike and I chatted about, which is that like you can kind of tell which kids have grown up to be pretty good actors and which ones haven't. And so some of the scenes I'm like, okay, and then some of them I'm like, yeah, okay, all right, that's fine. I thought in terms of like the story of what happens, um, it it did what it needed to do, and it was never gonna maybe feel like, it was as I don't think it could have reached heights that people wanted it to. And for the most part, I thought it mostly worked, in terms of like I didn't really expect a lot of death, and then we like kind of, you get one big, 11 moment where then even you can choose to I feel like you can choose to believe whether or not what the real ending was. I liked the ending of like them playing a game of D&D, and then these kids come downstairs and know they're going to play in D&D. I thought like that worked. I liked the teens on the roof stuff, like promising to get back together. I feel like for the most part, it like did everything I needed it to do, while I didn't feel like I was like, oh my God, that's the most amazing piece of television I've ever watched.
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense that like I think that the second batch of episodes, the three before the finale, plus the finale before the epilogue,
Yes.
um, I don't think it's doing anything any worse than the previous four had done.
Yeah.
But I think the expectations were higher because it was supposed to be concluded. Like the other stuff was forgivable because it was
Building.
leading into what was
Yes.
hopefully going to be something better, but then it wasn't. And so for me, it wasn't worse than I expected because I was already expecting not great because I really did not enjoy those first four episodes all that much either. And then the epilogue hits. It's 40 minutes long. The Duffer Brothers talked about how they've had this in mind for so long. And it really struck me. Like it really struck me. It reminded me of a show like How I Met Your Mother,
Right.
where it was like they knew the ending to that show for so long, but then it was so successful that it then ran for like 9 seasons. And that was like 6 seasons too many. And so by the time we got to that ending, it didn't really make sense for the story they'd told. I don't think that's quite the case for Stranger Things. I think they got out a little sooner than than How I Met Your Mother. But the thing that struck me about the epilogue is that we could have had the almost the exact same 40-minute ending at the end of say season 3, season
Mhm.
2. I don't remember what happened at the end of season 1, but it felt like you could have had that ending long, long ago. And all of the stuff in the middle was just spinning their wheels waiting to get here. Because it was such a successful show that they were making so much money that they just had to fill space. And they filled space by adding more characters and more explanation of like, oh, well, you see, we got to put the disc on the platform and it works like this, and then if we do it like this, like random theories, and it just got really tired for me in that sense. A lot of people took issue with the final battle and how anticlimactic it was and how there weren't any like demi gorgons and all of the nether stuff, and why was it so barren and all this stuff. But like for me, it was, again, it was like, yeah, this is just kind of par for the course at this point. It really did feel like they it felt like, okay, we're gonna focus on these last 40 minutes. Can somebody just kind of buy us some time? Like it was a plan that Robin came up with. Like, okay, we're all gonna focus here. You guys distract them for
Yeah.
like 20 hours of television, and then we'll hit them with this 40 minutes. That's how it felt. It's frustrating in that sense, but there is one thing I think that that they have, which has been a failure of the show, but is also a strength of the show by the end, which is that it's genuinely spanned so long, such a long time. It has been on air for almost a decade, and they can flash back to these actors who are now in their 20s to
It's
when they
true.
were actual children. And there's weight to that. There's weight to that that you can't fake. You can't cut to a different actor and have that same weight, because there are people who remember watching those children 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that means something. That matters, even if it's been spinning your wheels. And so while I wish that they could have used that to greater effect, it still was an impactful ending. And I think that, those 40 minutes were pretty good. Outside of that, I really hate the trope of like sacrificing myself, but not really, but I don't know, but they can't be together because that's tragic, right? Like they literally just like the whole thing of like nobody dies unless they I guess choose to,
Mhm.
which was Elle's thing. And it just felt to me like they wanted a more emotional gut punch for their epilogue, and so they came up with this absurd, the whole notion of like, oh, they're never gonna stop, therefore I have to. It was so contrived and forced. The notion of it came up like an episode before. It didn't fit with any of the themes of the show. It didn't make any logical sense. Why would the military just let them go anyway? It was so stupid. I hated that bit. It almost completely took me out. Luckily, the 40 minutes were able to drag me back in. But those were my Stranger Things thoughts.
Um, my other like thing that I thought really is I thought the being on the CGI sets looked really bad. Like I thought it just looked so bad.
I
But
saw some
whatever.
comparisons from like season 5 to season 1 a decade ago, and season
Yeah.
1 looked
Yeah.
incredible in comparison. Just
Yeah.
wild.
Well, I mean, I know it's like whatever, but like just don't light it so like it was like it was part of that it was so bright and it's like but
Yeah.
this just looks bad. Anyway, I don't I think I had low expectations. And I do agree I do agree that the difference between why I thought ultimately I like batch 1 volume 1 more is because I thought that by the end of the episode, by the end of episode 4, I was oh, that's pretty good. Like we've had character development. Like
Mm.
Will is now like using the stuff that has been like, brandished against him, like to fight Vecna. And then like we come back and we're kind of reset. And I'm like, why are we reset? We were on step 4 or whatever. Now we're back at square one. I have the other thing that I find really interesting is that the show kind of has the same problem that I think D&D campaigns have sometimes, which is in a D&D campaign, like what can be really hard is telling a story where you have like essentially like 4, 5, 6 main characters of a show. This like had so many characters that
Yeah.
they got like stuck with like, what are you gonna do with this many people hanging around? While also not really like killing. I mean, the show did kill people off. It's not like they never killed people off. Like Eddie died, and
Well, that was the thing. People have they recognize the pattern, which is they bring in a sacrificial character every season
right,
to kill off.
right. Callie dies, and this she comes back, and then she's dead. Like whatever. Like I get that. Like we were gonna have mass casualty, event at the end of this show, but honestly, I just kind of feel like mostly it was fine, and it never got back to the highs that it did, which is basically like season 1 of the show. And you have moments in between that are like fine. I'm just glad I didn't have my hopes super high because I honestly feel like I'm not even that disappointed. I think
Yeah.
ultimately I get why they made a lot of the decisions they did. I actually kind of like the L stuff, like the sacrifice, mostly because I think that I thought that they left it pretty ambiguous whether or not I really feel like you can walk away from the show feeling like Eleven's dead, and that will probably be the case until they decide to do something else with Stranger Things in 11, and 11 will show back up.
I'm
So
surprised that people took away that she was dead, because it felt to me like you don't they never once did a story beat like she actually died. like they did set it up beforehand, then they flash back to that setup, and they left this like mysterious air even through, like they threaded it through the 40 minutes of like, what is Mike noticing in the static? And then they
Right.
paid it off with like the story, and then like the notion of like believe.
To,
You know, it
to
felt
like,
very clear to me that that was like, I think they wanted it to be ambiguous, but I don't think you're supposed to come away from it being like, ah, she's definitely dead.
I think that's the only way I think it's like satisfying is to be like 11 sacrificed herself and died. So, that's, that's why I choose to. I don't know that I think in universe of the show, yeah, she is in Iceland or wherever she went.
Mhm.
I think I'm for now, I'll happily live in the world where like, at least there was like some big stakes at the end of like 11 sacrificed herself.
But
So.
what for what? What did she actually sacrifice herself for?
So that the military, yeah, I guess that's true. It's not like she did it to kill Vecna. She did it so that the military wouldn't
So
create
that they
other
would
Vecnas.
stop looking for her.
No, they won't create other Vecnas, right? That's the point. Yeah,
Right,
that's
but
the other point.
like
Yeah,
she should have been like leaving her friends to die, because there's no way the military would have actually let them go after murdering so many of them
right. She probably should have killed the
and
military.
knowing all of their secrets.
Yeah, yeah. There being nothing to like Dr. K. She's just Linda Hamilton chasing.
Ah, damn.
Yeah.
She left. All right.
Yeah.
You did murder about 50 soldiers, and you know all of my secrets, and you could do all kinds of stuff, but I guess
Okay.
we'll just F off now.
Here's the thing about the show. The more you think about it, the more you're like, uh-oh, like it wasn't, maybe that wasn't very good. The more you're just like, that's just a silly show that I watched, the better, which, you have to be there mentally. But yeah, we're like, oh man, she sacrificed herself. And then if you ask for what, it's like, well, that ruins it. I don't know.
I just feel like big moments like that need to at least like hold up to the bare minimum amount of scrutiny. You know what I mean? But what are you gonna do?
I mean, in terms of like, I just think No Schnapp is like he's not very good at acting, unfortunately. It's pretty rough. But like, thought, I like my Hawk. I like that,
But
the
I
like,
felt like they did her such a disservice this season. They made her so much less likable.
and like the commencement speech, I thought like didn't really like it didn't really work for me. Like the valedictorian, like like F you, giving the middle finger to the principal. I was like, yeah, whatever, I don't know. Yeah, I like Max and Lucas at the end. I like that. There's you know, there's some
There's
stuff
definitely
in there.
some good stuff in there.
Mhm.
All right. Finally, let's cap it off. Let's talk about Plurabus. Hopefully be a bit more positive about Plurabus. So we will be spoiling all of Plurabus so far. But honestly, I don't know if there's like a ton to say, which is kind of the reason Plurabus didn't make my list. Outside of like, I think it's a really well constructed show that was certainly entertaining enough to watch. It just felt, I think, a little frustrating because you kept waiting for the next part to happen, and Vince Gilligan was not interested in skipping to that part. He was really interested in this like slow burn of developing Carol's character and the situation, which again is so reminiscent to me of Better Call Saul's first season.
Yeah.
Where what the audience was interested in was Saul Goodman being Saul Goodman and doing criminal things and getting involved in all kinds of stuff, which he eventually does later in later seasons. And the buildup makes it all the better. But season one was much more interested in how Saul Goodman became Saul Goodman from the very beginning, and his relationship with his brother and all of these things that felt like a crawl at times. And it feels like, and this is, I would say, the generous and optimistic interpretation, which I think Vince Gilligan deserves, considering Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. But like, it feels like this is that. It feels like this was the season of, I just want to get to like the actual fighting of them, but we have to wait. And I think the literal physical traveling that took so long did not help it. It made the wait feel more tangible of like, we're watching this guy make a journey and it's like episode after episode after episode. You're waiting for him to finally actually get there. And it's not happening until the finale. And
Yeah.
that just feels so annoying, especially when you know that it's going to be like 2 years until we see the next season.
That's the part that's so tough because I am in the camp of like I trust Vince Gilligan. Like this is exactly how I felt after starting to watch Better Call Saul. It's honestly how I felt after watching the first few episodes of Breaking Bad. I was like, I don't know, and I restarted it. I was in a we had the Norwalk virus at a camp I worked at, and we were all quarantined. We just started watching Breaking Bad, and that's like it really took me like being stuck in a place to watch it, and I fell in love with it. So I trust him. I This show to me so far has so much more fun ideas than the execution of the show for me. I kept looking up because I did another poll for the old PSR Discord where we're putting in favorite characters. So I kept Googling like best characters of 2025, and I kept seeing Carol like pop up as like best character, and I kind of don't see it so far. Like I think she's very interesting, and I think there could be. I'm it's basically where I am at like season 1 of Better Call Saul, where it's like I know he's gonna eventually become Saul, so I'm fine to hang out here for a bit, but I don't see it quite yet. I'm not like in love with Jimmy McGill. And I kind of feel the same about Carol so far. The show to me, the most fun part was like, what would I do if all of humanity was willing to serve any of my needs? Which is like I would make every movie and television show that I ever wanted. Which like in the show world you can't really do that because like that's kind of boring and you wouldn't do it. But yeah, I did enjoy. I liked every episode. I don't know that I felt like this was like the best season of television I've ever seen, but I'm definitely watching Plurabus and will continue to watch Plurabus. It is just very annoying that it won't come out for a while.
Yeah, that's I think the biggest thing. I said it before. I think I stand by what I said before. I think that the season would have been better for me on a binge, and it would have been even better if I had waited to watch season 1 on a binge with season 2.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that Better Call Saul is a better show if you watch it all at once, basically. And I think the same will probably end up being true for Pluribus. And so, unfortunately, I probably will not be able to do it that way just because it's too popular, quite honestly. And I will miss so much discussion, and I will be spoiled probably, and all kinds of things. So I will be watching it with everyone. But if you are not as deep in the, I mean, if you're listening to this bit, you already spoiled yourself, so you already watched it. But yeah, that's my main thing with Pluribus. I was hoping for more, but I'm still hopeful for that more in the future.
So
It just hasn't delivered yet, but I still kind of expect it to eventually.
the thing about Gilligan, it was so interesting. I was chatting with Dr. Amanda about Pluribus a little bit, and we were talking about how, and I was referencing in comparison Vince Gilligan and then the creators of Dark, Baron Bodar and Yante Frise. And they're basically on these like somewhat opposite ends of spectrums in terms of like creating television, where notoriously Vince Gilligan decided in the final season of Breaking Bad, slight spoilers for the last season of Breaking Bad, to put a machine gun in a trunk and like figure out how to get himself. He basically like paints the room and he's stuck in a corner. And the thing that's incredible is that he's like he gets out of the corner. It's like you're like, wow, that was amazing. Whereas the creators of Dark are like, no, this thing will never appear in this television show if it is not like important, at some point in the story. They're so meticulous and thoughtful, and that's not what Vince Gilligan is. I do feel like the one thing that's very exciting to me about Pluribus is just how much is on, like, is how much is in his toy box now. In terms of like, I thought, what's the guy's name who comes, Manusos? Like, I'm incredibly intrigued by that character. I'm intrigued by Zosha. I am intrigued by Carol. I'm intrigued. Like the last moment of this is like atomic bomb on the driveway. I don't know that Vince. He might know what he's going to do with that atomic bomb. But like he's just thrown an atomic bomb in the toy box of his world, and like he's going to see it. And I am like pretty intrigued by that. John Cena showed up on the show playing John Cena, like super fun. I'm excited by all of the things he has put down. I just don't feel like at the moment I like appreciate the painting, but maybe by the end of this thing I will. So we'll see. And I'm along for the ride.
Yeah. All right. That's it then. That's our Plurabus talk. That's our Stranger Things talk. That's our list for the year. Big podcast. I hope you all enjoyed. As I said, we've got some very exciting things coming up, including the Pit. 1,000 Blows actually has a second season, which I
That's right,
wasn't
Stephen
expecting.
Graham. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Fallout
And
is still airing. Fallout's been, I think, 2 episodes. It's 2,
Fallout
3.
has started. I haven't started Fallout yet, but I'm excited
Very
to.
good. Very good. Very
Um,
fun. First episode was great. Yeah.
Also, Industry, which I still haven't caught up on,
Loved Industry.
is starting season 4 very soon. So lots of things coming up in January here, as I think
Not
the TV season is kind of going to start picking up again.
not to mention The Traders is going to be on,
Of
and
course.
Traders UK has started airing its season.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's very exciting time. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here. Of course, you can find me on my Patreon watching things like The Traders UK, as well as many other fun shows. So come check it out over on the Patreon. And Grace, what are you up to?
I'm on social media at Hi from Grace, writing for Parade, doing lots of different coverage, writing for Pop Heist, doing some dark recaps, and I'll be doing some Traders coverage over there. So yeah, I'm on social media doing the Century in Cinema. Back at it. Took a little bit of a break, but I'll be back with Volver this week on the Century in Cinema. So yeah, check it out.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. We will see all of you next time.